And we were talking about somatic symptoms, like disorders, the last time we were together. And again, we said this is a really fascinating disorder. The somatic symptom disorder, SSD, sometimes as it's labeled, deals with this. Physical symptoms include pain and high anxiety in these individuals about having a disease, meaning they feel like their arm hurts or their back hurts or something hurts, and maybe they have really bad anxiety about maybe having a disease, but the patients need to have complained about and taken medicine for, and actually change your lifestyle because of, or see a physician about the symptoms, and experience anxiety that has interfered with carrying on a normal activity for at least 6 months. So this is a long-term thing. They're not looking for short-term here. They're looking for how long this thing has lasted. And again, when you think about somebody with somatic symptoms, there is no true tie to this. And like I said, the individuals who experience physical or symptoms which have only psychological issues, meaning there isn't a cause. So in somatic symptom disorder, the person has back pain, but there's no cause of it. The person feels like they have a really bad headache, but there's no cause of what's causing it. Maybe they feel like they can't move their arm, like their arm is broken, but they haven't done anything to their arm. And that's what somatic disorder is. And again, you had to have changed your lifestyle as a result of that. Imagine if you didn't have if you actually broke your arm, you'd have to change your lifestyle quite a bit, or you broke your leg. These people would feel like they've done that. And so that could be part of this somatic symptom disorder. Another part of this is, another category of this is illness anxiety disorder. And this is preoccupation with a serious medical or health condition with either or mild physical somatic symptoms such as nausea, dizziness that has persisted for at least 6 months. An example might help understand this a little bit more. This person becomes preoccupied with a bump on your arm and being convinced that it was cancerous and that you were going to die even after doctors had said it was not. Once in a while, maybe you'll see something on your arm, maybe like a freckle or some type of mole or something that just kind of looks a little bit different on your arm, and it's really truly nothing serious, and you've taken medicine for it, you've complained about it, you've changed your lifestyle as a result of it, you went to see a doctor as a result of it, and the doctor has said, yeah, we've tested this, we've taken it, there's nothing, it's not cancer, it's nothing, but you cannot get away from that. You cannot focus on anything other than this. And as a result, it creates anxiety, and they call it illness anxiety disorder, even though there's no real true tie, and you have been proven wrong by the doctors that it is not actually what you think it is. Conversion disorder. This is where individuals experience impaired voluntary, motor, or sensory function, despite the fact that no medical reason can be found to explain the problem. Meaning you don't actually have a medical issue, but perhaps you could be paralyzed, meaning you can't move, you can't talk, you're blind, you have seizures, or sometimes anesthesia, meaning you can't feel parts of your body. It appears abruptly, usually following trauma or stressful situations, and typically lasts for several weeks, disappearing when anxiety levels are reduced. There's a story in World War II, and it's based in the book Band of Brothers. If you guys have ever heard of the miniseries on HBO, Band of Brothers, it's fantastic. If you love World War II, it's wonderful. Follows the paratroopers, and there's a paratrooper named Private Blythe, and he was on the D-Day landings and the D-Day jumping out of the airplane for the airborne, and he lands and he gets in a situation where about midway through a battle, he just sits there and nothing has happened to him. He hasn't been shot, anything like that, and he just sits down and he can't see. He just looks around and he just can't see anything. People come up to him like, "Hey, are you okay? You got to get up. We got to move. We got to move." And he's like, I can't see. And they took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Have you been shot? Have you been punched in the head? Have you been hit?" Nothing. And sure enough, this guy had blindness. And they called it conversion disorder because as of a stressful situation or trauma, and it lasted for weeks, it disappeared with his anxiety levels. And about a week later, he was able to get out of the hospital and it was fine. And his vision came back just kind of all of a sudden. And so this could be conversion disorder, where it actually your body almost reacts to a stressful situation, but there's no true cause necessarily. Now you might be like, well, isn't the stressful situation the cause? Yes, but what we're saying is there's no physical cause. There's no physical cause that would cause blindness, like you getting your eyes poked out, or shrapnel to your eyes, or glaucoma, or cataracts. There's no physical cause of it. it seems to be a psychological cause. So, what causes would we actually be able to tie to somatic disorder? Well, the psychoanalytic psychodynamic perspective would say, as usual, there's unresolved unconscious conflicts and sometimes referred to as hysteria. And so there's things that the person hasn't solved in their past that has caused these somatic symptoms, these illness, anxiety disorders, or the conversion disorder to actually happen. And again, sometimes it's referred to as hysteria. So it's unresolved conflicts. Behavioral, they would say it's the important that reinforcements have an effect as the sufferers receive attention and sympathy from family, friends, and medical workers. So the behavioralist would explain that this person is kind of realizing that people are paying attention to them as a result of these things, and so therefore they continue to have this be part of their life. And so therefore they kind of say, you know what, I'm getting attention, I'm getting feedback, I'm getting positive feedback, so maybe it's worth it to me to continue to talk about this disease. Cognitive would say how faulty thinking and catastrophic thoughts lead to individuals to misinterpret normal bodily functions as problematic symptoms. And so, therefore, what starts to happen is you might be like, oh, my side hurts, but you kind of forget that you just got done running. And maybe you have, a side cramp. And that person starts to think like, oh, a normal bodily function, it's problem. I have cancer, I have my appendix burst, or whatever it could be. And it's just faulty thinking gets in their head. It permeates their mind and tells them that normal stuff that would be happening, such as your eye watering. Maybe if something happens and you get something in your eye waters, this person would be like, okay, I'm having the beginning stages of cataracts or glaucoma or something like that. And they would say faulty thinking. So again, behavioral, always think of like reinforcement. Cognitive, always think of mindset. All right, let's move on to dissociative disorders. Dissociative disorders, this is a portion of the mind actually splits off of the mainstream of consciousness, producing behavior that is incompatible with the rest of the individual's identity. And so think of it like this. It would be like your normal mind. You go to school, you go to work, you go to school, you go to work, you go to church, you live your life at home. But then a portion of your mind actually splits off from that main consciousness and produces a different type of behavior that is not like you. And it takes away from your original identity. They list these things, these dissociative disorders, into 5 categories: dissociative amnesia, dissociative fugue, dissociative identity disorder, DID, depersonalization disorder, and dissociative disorder. Now, here's the thing. You guys have probably heard of DID and didn't realize it. If any of you guys have ever heard of the movie Split, that was the one that kind of went in the same vein of the movies, kind of like a trilogy in a weird way. Unbreakable, Split, and then Mr. Glass, I believe, are the 3. All are really kind of interesting movies. But anyway, that deals with dissociative identity disorder. I'm going to show you guys a video tomorrow, and we'll discuss it when we get together for our normal meeting and talk about dissociative identity disorder. But dissociative amnesia is this. An individual experiences a loss of memory of a traumatic experience in their life, such as witnessing a violence or death or a physical injury or abandonment. And so what happens is there's no identifiable medical cause, and it often begins suddenly following severe psychological stress. In some cases, the individual forgets about personal details about their life, such as episodic, yet still retains knowledge required to function in the world, such as semantic and procedural memory. Meaning you could go to work and remember how to, if you worked at Home Depot, how to load shelves and cut boards, but you would not remember the detail of the traumatic event. So let's say that you witnessed a horrible car accident where several people died, and then people ask you about that, and you don't remember it. And you might be like, they would ask you what, like the police officer would say, later on, a couple of months later, you're in court, and they're like, do you remember this? And you're, no, I don't. And dissociative amnesia would mean that you literally just don't remember the traumatic occurrence. You block it out. Now, psychoanalytic psychodynamic would simply say that you are repressing those thoughts. But according to this, and according to the DSM, you just literally don't remember that event because the traumatic experience was so bad. It doesn't have to be with violence. It doesn't have to be death. Could deal with physical injury. It could be you being abandoned as a kid. It could be some type of physical or emotional abuse, sexual abuse, those type of things. but pretty easy to understand because dissociative amnesia means it splits off. That part of your memory splits off from your regular stream of consciousness. You don't remember it. Dissociative fugue, this is the type of amnesia with no physical cause, whereas the other one actually has a physical cause. This one does not. This is where an individual forgets the details of his or her personal identity and suddenly travels away from customary surroundings. Frequently, a person with this disorder will move to a new place, start an entirely new life, and often the new life is more outgoing and uninhibited, meaning they less restraints than the prior personality. Causes could be marital issues, personal rejection, wars, natural disasters, and fugue states can last hours, days, and sometimes months. So you might be like, give me the short version of this. Basically, what this means is that you forget your previous life and create a brand new one, and you don't realize that you're doing it. And you forget the details of, like, it would be like me being Doug Anderson, forgetting the details. I leave Elliot, I leave Finn, I leave Jess, and I head to, San Francisco, and I start a new life. In my new life, I'm a drug dealer, and I sell meth, and I am involved in the drug trade. And I create a different life that a lot of time is more uninhibited and outgoing than my prior personality. It's complete opposite. Yeah, I don't deal drugs. You guys are like, you don't? Nope, I'm a teacher. I can't deal drugs. Although, what a great cover that would be. But often the new life is just completely different. Now, the cause, it could be the fact that I feel like my AP Psych class is rejecting all of my lectures, and they're not showing up for our Google Meets, and they're not paying attention to my lectures, and they just don't really like me. Bobby writes a note about me and says he hates me. And that could be part of this that would cause this. And so fugue states can last hours, days, and sometimes months. Dissociative identity disorder. This is the presence of two or more separate and distinct personalities in one person. This is formally known as the multiple personality disorder, but they've changed it under the new DSM. Personalities are usually very different from each other, and the transition from one personality to another is sudden and frequently associated with stress. So the more stressed a person becomes, the more they're going to change their personality. The primary personality typically remains unaware of the actions or thoughts of the other personalities. On the other hand, the secondary personalities are well aware of the primary personality. So let me explain how this would work, and I'm going to use myself as an example because I don't want you thinking that I'm talking about any of you if I use one of your names. So it would be like this for me. If I had DID, I would have Doug, and then I would create another person. Let's call him Liam. And Liam would be from England, and he would speak with an English accent, and all of a sudden he would just transition, and he would probably not like most people from France, because, well, English and the French don't really get along. And then all of a sudden I just change to somebody else, somebody from Sweden. Or maybe I just change into a person from Michigan who's like a big, tough bodybuilder, and it just transitions. But Liam and the big bodybuilder, we'll just call him Brendan, okay? So Liam and Brendan are aware of Doug, but Doug is not aware of Liam and Brendan. And it changes seamlessly. Like I said, that movie Split, which is kind of like a weird horror/suspense movie. It's rated PG-13, so again, I think all of you guys are over 13. But watch it with your own discretion and your parents' discretion. But that does a really good job of showing how seamless the person can split between the different personalities. The diagnosis is super, super rare, but the number of individuals with DID is greater in the U.S. than any other country, which leads a lot of people to ask questions like, how in the world does that even happen? And so it could be part of the environment, it could be what they're eating, it could be stress. There's all sorts of things that they have kind of tied that to. But DID is very important. Like I said, I'll show you a couple videos on that the next time we get together. So the cause of dissociative identity disorder, these dissociative disorders, psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, they would say you're repressing these memories that are too difficult for you to actually deal with directly. So you create a personality that deals with this, or your personality runs away from that current problem. The behavioral approach, individuals learn that thinking about negative memories causes pain or punishment, allowing their minds to wander and ignore upsetting thoughts and memories, resulting in negative reinforcement because anxiety is removed. So the less you deal with it, or the more you create different guards, the better you feel. You create positive reinforcement by you creating this other personality. Doesn't make you think about the pain, so therefore you don't mess with that. And then generally it is associated with severe childhood abuse. A lot of times these dissociative identity disorders usually are tied to some type of physical, sexual, mental abuse that somebody has experienced when they were younger. Okay? That's it for today.